Perpetual Infinity just aired. Cam, do you actually believe that it could be the Borg at action right now with regards to what Leland is up to? Do we even really want the Borg on Star Trek Discovery?
I think that's the better question, because
Okay.
do I think it's the Borg? No.
Do you think the producers want some people in the audience to actually think that it could be a possibility, though?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, okay, this goes back a bit, but I remember a lot of talk with, I think it was Into Darkness, when I was reading, interviews and listening to podcasts with Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orsi. And one of the touchstones that they would always come back to in their interviews was the Borg. And I always got the sense, because Alex Kurtzman is not, originally a Star Trek fan. It was more Roberto Orsi that was. But
Roberto Orsi.
But Alex Kurtzman, that was one of the touchstones he brought up. Like, he had seen Best of Both Worlds, and it had an impact on him back in the day. And so, you bring what you have. Nicholas Meyer wasn't a Star Trek fan, but he brought a lot of his own influences to Star Trek. And if the Borg were a major element of your Star Trek background, I think you would be interested in bringing them back. But I think they found a really smart way in this episode to introduce Borgish elements. The kind of pleasures that people get out of Borg episodes without actually being like, here they are.
Okay, well, let's break it down. First, we get, I guess, the equivalent of a 23rd century Borg tubule. It looks like that.
It seems somehow more severe, that's for sure.
Very, very much so.
It seems awful.
It's old technology. And then we actually see, like, nanoprobes going into Leland's system. And then I have to go back to Star Trek First Contact, where we get really kind of his veins, or I don't know if people have face veins quite as prominent as that, but
Leland's a very special man.
That is true. I keep forgetting that.
Yeah.
So they're really trying to get a lot of the Borg imagery that is very familiar. But for me, I think it rings false if, in fact, that the control influence that is coming from the future, that is now influencing control in the present, is in fact a Borg ploy, because we ultimately know that it is going to be a failure, because we know what the status of the Borg is in the 24th century. So I think this actually saps tension from the series if this really is a Borg deal. But Cam, do you think moving forward, after they've been kind of like, not hinting at it, but like teasing us with Borg stuff, do you think they want to go down that path?
Yes.
Okay.
I think there's always the temptation to do the Borg, because I think the Borg for Star Trek are a ratings grabber, especially for the casual fans. Casual fans love Borg episodes, it seems. And so, look at Enterprise. They had that episode Regeneration. They found a way to do a Borg story without quite doing the Borg. And I think there's...
Space zombies.
Exactly, yeah. And, part of me says, as much as I said, no, I don't think it's the Borg, I almost wouldn't be surprised if there was some little nod in maybe the finale that this was somehow tied to that. Like, they defeat it, it's over, but just so you know, there was something there.
From a logistical standpoint, I don't understand. Let's say there's a season 3-episode arc where they want to actually deal with the Borg head-on. I don't understand how it quite works within the continuity as we understand it in Star Trek, especially when we know where the Borg are at in the 24th century.
Although if they go into the future...
So throw them 950 years into the future. My only issue, though, is as they established in Star Trek Voyager's Endgame, the Borg are pretty much on their last leg of existence at that point. And I think that actually takes away from the legacy of Endgame, which I don't think is a favorite finale from Star Trek fans.
No, that would be These Are the Voyages.
Oh, dear. You're only saying that because you love the director of all these Star Trek Discovery episodes, who's a.k.a. Chef on that particular finale.
I'm a big Chef fanboy.
Yes. So I just think it would take away a lot of what we got out of Star Trek Voyager, and I just don't know how they reconcile it. And look, we had a little bit of retconning on Star Trek Voyager with regards to the Hansons and their knowledge of the Borg, how it wasn't really told to the TNG crew, even though they were kind of concurrent.
Magnus Hansen, you old clown.
I know. But get your whole family Borgified.
It would not surprise me, though, and as you said, like, Voyager pretty much knocked the Borg down to nothing, right? Yeah. If there is that temptation to restore the Borg. Because the Borg are good for business. We've seen with Discovery that they wanted to bring back the Klingons as adversaries. And we know that that's something that Star Trek's always kind of fought with. DS9 did it in Season 4. is there always going to be that temptation, not just in Discovery, but in other shows, the Picard spinoff, whatever other Star Trek shows happen on, CBS All Access, to somehow include a Borg presence just because they're so iconic and those stories are so popular?
Well, it's funny, like, I'm kind of done with the Borg. I think after, like, 25 episodes
I think most fans, like really hardcore fans, are kind of done with them.
Yeah, but I wouldn't necessarily mind if there's, like, Picard having a flashback or kind of dealing with that trauma for at least 1 or 2 episodes in the spinoff. With regards to Discovery, I don't know. I'm not with it. The Picard, I'll say that it's up in the air, just like my shirt here. But the other thing that I want to point out, let's say hypothetically the Borg come back in Discovery. We know how they like to update the looks of Andorians, Terrans, Klingons. What would you expect from an updated version of the Borg, Cam?
Well, honestly, I would expect something of a bit of a cheat, kind of the way that Enterprise did it. Because you can kind of do the proto-Borg. What's going to be the Borg that we know from, Q, is it Q Who?
Yeah, that was their first appearance.
Yeah, and Best of Both Worlds, like the classic Borg. I don't think they're going to go all the way there. I think you want to do the kind of the in-between model. I don't know that that's necessarily interesting on a narrative level, but boy, would that be tempting. It's just, and we've seen Discovery has been really interested in a lot of fan service that pays tribute to things that come down the road in Star Trek. We got an episode tribute to, like, the cage in the menagerie.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't rule it out.
Okay, my big fear,
and Section 31. I mean, come on.
Okay, but my big fear, do you think it's possible that they pretty much hire bodybuilders to play every Borg drone that they encounter, and that's how they amp it up for the 21st century?
I did get the letter in the mail.